and welcome back to Reykjavik. We are now going to start casting out finally our Lopi sweater, and I hope you enjoy doing the little swatch and cutting into it eventually. If you want to participate in the knit along, subscribe to my channel, get the patterns on Ravelry on my website. There's all the link downstairs, like down. And I will be drawing a winner for a giveaway every week. So to participate, you really have to be a subscriber, to like my videos, of course be knitting my pattern. And what else? Oh yeah, and then you can also join my Facebook group where we can chat and exchange colors. It's a private group, so you have to ask to enter into it, but it's a more private place where we can ask any sort of questions, even the silliest one. And like I said before, I can also add little live or little extra things if there are some points that would not have come through in the videos itself. So usually I start knitting Lopi sweater. It's my personal preference by the sleeve. This is why the pattern is telling you to start with the sleeve. However, for the purpose of this knit along, so that it's more educational, I decided to start with the body today. So we're going to knit the body. Before I start, the reason why I prefer to start with the sleeves is just so I don't get into any sleeve island. You know, when you knit one sleeve, then you make the other one and it's fine. And then you have the body, and then you're ready to get to the most interesting part. And I sometimes, when I have colors in the sleeves, also like sometimes to test my color on the sleeves. So eventually I will make a little change. It's a nice way also to check your gauge, so you're knitting in a round already, and it's not like a big things you can unravel. And I find it also easier to start with the sleeve, because when you know, if you start with the body, it's like a little bit long, the body, and then you start the first sleeve and it's getting long, and then there's still the second sleeve and it seems like ages. So it's like psychological. Maybe it doesn't work this way for you, I don't know. But I'm starting with the body because the sleeve in our in this knit along, I mean, first it's like knitting on a little diameter, so maybe some of you want to get to know more about new techniques like magic loop. There's also some color work, and there is some elbow shipping, which means chopped rows. So it's a little bit more technical, so I just wanted to start with something a little bit more simple to start with. Yeah, so we need our biggest needle. I know that for the rib, it's often that we use a needle a bit a size smaller, because the ribbing tends to be more elastic and wider. But for this sweater, because it's at the bottom, this gives the sweater a tiny little flair. So I'm knitting the ribbing with the biggest needle already, and then continue with the body. And the rib will like flare a little bit, and it's a rather long one. So that's just because I designed the sweater like that, and I like it this way. You can do whatever you prefer. This is the nice things about knitting. You can choose your color, but you can also, you know, alter the patterns, make them a bit longer and make them fit your body, your style, and whatever. So to start with, we are going to use our main color, which is one strand of plötulopi and one strand of love story. So this is the wheel with all the love story colors that I have. It's my color wheel. So I choose this one for my sweater. It's not a dyed color like all those. It's this one and this one, the gray, this one, the brown. It's natural sheep color, completely undyed, so that's why it looks like more like a deep brown. And then like I said before, I used a color that is discontinued, so you may find it in a shop. I think I saw it in the Knitting Association, but for the moment it's not on the shade card anymore, and so you could replace it by, for example, a light blue or just any other nice color you want to choose. Oh, of course the big. But I'm going to use my stash. I don't know, I have to scan that, I don't know what to do with. So when you start working with plötulopi, it can be like a little bit bizarre here. There's lots of things happening in the middle here that, you know, just like, what is this? So this is like some yarn that is in the middle, and you have more or less, and we usually, if we can't like take it away, we usually just break it off. I like to start with the external rather than the middle, but you can do whichever. And the reason why there is all this fluffy stuff happening in the middle here is that when the plötulopi is made, it comes from the machine, and they made many plaits together, and then they put them on a rack, and then make like many plaits, many groups of plaits all together, and then they are like compressed and then knotted, and I love it. And when you cut it, it's just like that expands. It's really fun. So that's why you have all those things in the middle, because it's like the one thread, the same that's coming. So that's why there are so many things happening, so you just remove it. And sometimes I know abroad, when you are buying plötulopi, it comes like single, but that's been wrapped in plastic, which personally I don't like, and because it's plastic, oh yeah, but it makes it more convenient and easier, otherwise it would damage. And usually the people who are doing it, they will remove the little things in the middle, and before it's set into the plastic bag. Yeah, and then plötulopi is like usually around 110 grams, and it's sold in Iceland, by the way. So you just weigh your 2 plates, but whether you have 107, 112, 110, I mean the yardage is always about the same, because it's just so light. So you can start knitting, like I said before, either from the outside or from the middle. Personally, I like to put all this like this and start from the outside. Then I will put my plate simply on the ground. I'm not sure if you can see it. And then I will just, you know, if I take it like this up, it may break. So you have to be careful, because sometimes there is one of the thread, sorry, that is a little bit outside or in. So always careful when I take it. You can also put it here on your laps and just, you know, go carefully. You don't want to have a cat around or a dog. I don't have any pets because 2 of my daughters out of 3 are allergic, but the neighbors have cats and dogs, so it's just fine. We're doing all right. And then I'm going to double it with 1 skein of Love Story, and it's such a fine yarn. It's a bit the same thing. Personally, I prefer to take it from the outside, and I will just leave my my skein also on the floor, or I got this really nice thing from Etta, from the yarn shop, and so you can put it here, and then it will roll all together. So fancy. Well, okay. So we are starting to cast on, and we're going to use an Icelandic cast on that is called húsgangsfit. So it's the most popular cast on, I would say, especially for Lopi's sweater, because it's elastic enough, strong enough, and I'm sure you've heard of it before. Húsgangsfit is kind of referred to the house, the home, and it's called in English the long tail cast on. So the long tail cast on, as its name suggests, must have a tail, and we're always into trouble to know how much of a tail we're going to need. So I have one little trick that I use. It's just like wrapping the yarn, like not too fast, not too loose. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And this is about what I need to cast on 10 stitches. Then 20. Yeah. 20, and then I have to take both of them. 40. About 80. And then I will need a little bit more to reach the number of 130, because this is the size I'm going to knit, the small size, because I always knit for someone, as you know, because I said so last time, and yeah, I'm just knitting for someone who is a size small. So let's do the long tail cast on, or húsgangsfit in Icelandic, and I'm going to show you both the English way and the continental or German way. And Icelanders, as you may remember, knit the continental way or German. So to start, but it's really the same, it's just the fingers that are acting differently. So to make, you can start either by making a slip knot for both of them, and then putting your needle, your loop on the needle. And then I have my skeins here, and this is my tail on the other side, so I will have my tail at the back. And then you hold the yarns, the 2 yarns in your hand, and then you put the fingers and the index in between here. And then when you go like this will simply make a loop here. And this is so your your loop, like a stitch you're making on your thumb, which normally would be on your left needle. And this is how you hold your yarn on the left hand. So you go inside the loop and then grab, going on the top, and knit the stitch. So it's just like really the same movement you do when you're knitting. The only difference is that the first loop, the stitch, they are not on the needle, they are on your thumb, but it's like you go inside, go on the top, grab it, go through, let it slip, and then tighten a bit. You don't want to be doing that too loose, but you don't want to be too tight either. You want your stitches to be able to slide on the needle easily. Now, if you're going to do the English way, it's exactly the same, except that the yarn here won't be on your left finger, but on your right one. And then you're going to wrap with it, and then make the, so, and then you have to go back into the position. So you go in the middle of the yarns here, make the loop around the thumb, go inside, wrap,
So I'm going with my thumb, I'm going underneath, go inside the loop, knit it, tighten, like here again, hip. So you want that one from your needle to come on the top, because if you do it in the other, yeah, you won't have any loop to just open. So just go with your thumb on the back. That's it. And then of course you can go back to the other way, which is exactly the same, except you are picking the yarn on the left hand instead of wrapping it with the right hand. Now I have no idea how many stitches I've been casting on, but maybe I'm going to count. Maybe not right away. Let's see. So usually you count with 2, like 1. I don't need my glasses. Wow, I don't see anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So like 20 stitches. So I have 110 to go. If you are very distracted, you could like put just a little marker, for example, every 50 or 50 stitches or 20, so it makes it easier to count. So I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So we have 40 stitches now. And then I can go back with this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then here, if we want, we can put a little marker. So I'm going to grab a marker. Just whatever marker I have. I have many. I lost them all, so I often also use just a piece of no, this one is too smooth. I have such big needles. Okay, I'm going to use that one. It's a gift from one of the participants in one of the knitting tours. It's really nice. It's kind of a skull, and it's pink. Oh, especially made for Kristy. So I have 50, so I can now make more and count until 50, and then put another marker, and then count until 30, and then I will have the right number of stitches. Eight, 29, and 30. So let's see, close enough. I'm just going to break the extra, but I had little left. It's just perfect. And then we're going to start doing the ribbing. So I have 2 markers, like 50, 50, and 30. So we usually, for the Lopi sweater, we will be knitting the ribbing back and forth, because it doesn't matter really that you join around right away, because you're going to have just as much as knit stitches than purl, so it's not going to go any faster if you knit in the round rather than you knit back and forth. And also, you know, when you have to join a piece of knitting in the round, it's very often that this wants to twist, and you never know how to, you know, you have always to check. So this will avoid this, because you're going to knit back and forth, and we'll knit like 10 centimeter rib. So it will be like really easy to just to join in the round without twisting anything. And don't think it doesn't happen, because it does, even to the best of us. I knitted one, a full sweater, like all twisted. And I just cut it, and then it wasn't twisted because I didn't want to unravel or anything, but yeah. So now we're going to do the ribbing. So I'm sure you all know how to knit and how to purl, but I'm still going to go through a few little points, because we usually knit about the same way, but we not necessarily purling in the same manner. So if we start with English knitting, it's pretty much straightforward. You just wrap around one and knit two, then bring the yarn in between, so it's at the front, and then we wrap and we purl it, and then knit, the yarn comes at the front, because if it doesn't, then we will make a yarn over, which we don't want. And if we do by mistake, we can always just let it go on the next row. All right. Now, when we're knitting continental, it's also pretty much straightforward for the knitting. So we just go inside and knit and knit. And then for the purl, that's another story. So there are, I would say, like two main ways to do the purl. It's just like to bring the yarn to the front and then wrapping around, and then purl your stitch, take the needle off. And then for the second, the yarn stay at the front. We wrap it, and then to the back to make the knit stitch. And you can tell that it's not necessarily my favorite way of doing this. So you can also, instead of bringing the yarn to the front, you can just go with the needle underneath the yarn, which makes it bring to the front, and then just do the purl. So let it at the front, go here, and then I'm bringing my index back to make the wrap all around, so I can purl it. Now we have to knit stitch. And then go underneath with the needle, go into the stitch, bring the yarn here. Some use also their thumb, I think. Yeah, well, whatever you want to use. But I'm going also to show you another method that maybe not everybody knows, but it is rather popular in Iceland, or at least among the women that are knitting sweaters at the Knitting Association that I know of. And it's using what we call the Norwegian purl. So you may remember last time that I told you that the Icelandic, the Norwegian knitters got acquainted with the German way of knitting. In the 19th century, it was introduced first by the upper class, and then because it was supposedly faster, which I disagree with, it went to the popular also. So this is done without bringing the yarn to the front. That's the thing. So it's going to be your right needle that is going to go underneath the yarn. So you go underneath, so it has at the front, then you go into the stitch, and then you go back to the back of the needle with your right needle, and you pick or wrap the yarn around, then you come back to the front, and then you have your stitch. So I'm going to show this again, maybe a bit closer. So you go underneath with your needle, go inside the loop, bring the needle to the back, wrap it, come back to the front, and make the loop, and then you can let it off the needle. Go here, back to the front, underneath, inside, back around, come back to the front. So let's improve our ribbing a little bit, and we'll go back to the purl very soon. So you may have noticed that when we are knitting ribbing, it's very often there is this knit stitch here that is a bit looser. You have like one of the left leg that is a little bit like a bit more opened, and it's not necessarily so nice. It can be very apparent, for example, if you do some cable work. You may have noticed this. I mean, we're really going into details now. You can just do your ribbing the way you want. But if you want to improve your skills, this is a nice trick to know. Here you can see from the other sweater, well, this one has been washed, so it's better, but you can see that the knit stitch is just as tight than the one on the right. So the reason why it's a bit loose, it's often because when we are bringing the yarn to the front, we're using a tiny little bit more when we do our fur, when we are doing when we go from the knit stitch to the purl stitch, and this tiny 1 millimeter or less extra yarn is not showing on the purl itself, but showing on the knit itself, which seems to be a bit looser. So one way to, so it's here, so I'm showing knitting. So you bring to the front, and then you knit, you purl, and then it just will have a little bit more. So one way to fix that is to make a shorter purl. So in order to make a shorter purl, instead of wrapping your yarn like this, you know, in between the needle and around, you wrap it in the opposite direction. So you just go underneath, and you see that it's a much shorter way, so it's just going to use a bit less yarn, and it's going to compensate for the extra yarn. So you just do that, and then when you're going to purl your second stitch, you don't have to do it because the yarn is already at the front, so you just can purl it normally, and then you go back to the back of the work, and you can do the knit, and then we're going to do the short purl again. So we bring it to the front, go inside, and then instead of wrapping from the back and front, we go from the front to the back directly. It's much shorter. Now I'm going to show you the other way, the German way. So if we're going here, so we can bring the yarn to the front, and here you see, you just take it like this. So instead of coming with the thumb, the index or the thumb in the front, you just let it underneath, and it's just so much faster. So actually a lot of people are purling in Iceland this way, because it's such a short way when they're not doing the purl stitch. Now, if you look carefully, the problem with this shorter purl, whereas it's doing the English or the continental way, it doesn't change. It's the same movement, just the hands holding the yarn differently. It makes a stitch that is twisted. That is the mount is not the same. You know, you will have to untwist it because it's twisted. So this is something we will have to fix on the next row. So I'm going to just continue knitting. So this is where I'm fixing it. Don't worry about this. I'm going to show it to you. So here I'm bringing my yarn to the front and then just go like this. Here, here. Bring my yarn to the front and then go underneath and take it right away. And it's the same. So you go underneath instead of wrapping on the top. Go underneath, whether you're wrapping or not. It doesn't change much. You go here. And then you can see also that this stitch is also with the left leg in front when it should be the right leg if we were going to have it correctly. And then the second stitch you can do it just normally. Or not. You can continue doing those short purl in a way to work faster. But then you will have to you can continue doing it, but then you will also, they will all be twisted, so you will have to untwist them all on the way back. So I'm just going to go to the end of my needle and then work my way in the opposite direction, and we're going to untwist those. So sometimes I twist, sometimes I don't. I've noticed I have a very inefficient method of purling. I always have my thumb going in the front. I don't know why. I've tried to keep it there and I just go so slow, but it's just like bad habits you're taking when you're a little girl and it doesn't go away. Well, anyway. Here we had a purl stitch on the other side. The purl stitch is the reverse. And so this one is twisted, you can see it. It should be this leg, so you can either change the mount like this and knit it. And now we have a purl, so I'm making my short purl again. And then a knit stitch. This one is, so you want to untwist it, so I will just knit it like through the back loop. So going through the back loop, which is untwisting it. And then I continue to make my short purl on this side. And then going through the back loop to untwist the stitch. And then if we're going to work with the yarn on the left hand, it's the same. So we just so I'm just going to do short purl because I think it's much faster here. And then we knit. This one is twisted, so we go through the back loop and knit it. You usually or very often take the first stitch in the row and slip it without knitting it. I don't for this sweater, because for this cardigan, because we're going to pick up the stitches on the edge. The ratio is 2/3. So if we were going to slip them, we would have to pick up stitches in every every 2 other rows. So that would maybe a little bit too much. I would tend to feel, so I'm not. So I'm not slipping the first stitch. I'm just knitting or purling it. And then, of course, if we're going to knit a sweater and not a cardigan, we would knit the ribbing in the round. I mean, there would be no point in knitting back and forth and then sewing it afterwards. But because it's a cardigan, we can do it back and forth. We could also do it in the round and then cut it, but like I said, it's just knit and purl anyway, so it just have the advantage that you won't have to be particularly careful when it comes to join in the round effectively. No way it's going to be twisted. So I'm done with my 10 centimeters ribbing now. So it's going to be time to join in the round. But before we do that, we have to prepare for the steek. So what is the steek? It comes from Scandinavian and means stitches. So it's actually some extra stitches that we're casting on, and we're going to cut into them. So why are we casting on extra stitches? It's because we don't want, no, let's pretend this is a sweater. I mean, we would not want to cut into the color work. We want to have a space. And in Iceland, the traditional way to cut plötulopi sweater is to make a so-called sewn stitch. So we're going to secure it with some stitches with the sewing machine, and I will also show you how to do that if you don't have a sewing machine. And we need enough space, but we don't want to waste yarn because it's just going to be cut. So we're going to cast on 2 extra stitches, that's enough. And those extra stitches, so we can distinguish them from the whole body, we are going to purl them. The only reason we are purling them is just so that we can see them and we can cut straight. I mean, we don't want to cut our sweater on the side. So to do that, when you arrive at the end of your row, you don't turn your work. You now will be ready to join in the round, and there you're going to cast on 2 extra stitches just before you join in the round. So I'm finished knitting my row, and I'm casting on at the very end 2 extra stitches. So it's a backward loop cast on, so we make a loop like we did for the regular cast on, and then we just simply let the loop go on the needle, so without knitting it. And that's it. And now we're going to join in the round, being careful not to twist, but it's difficult to twist when you have this very nice big band. And now we can start knitting in the round, and for now we're just going to knit, just knit. So I'm still going to go into the backward, knitting in the back loop for the stitches that were twisted. But no, it's just like knit. It's just so easy. And so we're going to continue knitting all the way, and those 2 extra stitches that we have cast on here, those will be marking the end of the round. So, and then we will always purl them. So I'm just going to go to the end of my round and show you. So this is my last knit stitch here, and now here I have my two purl stitches that I have cast on extra, and so they're like really big, and so here this is really where I want to always purl them and always make the first purl a short purl or a Norwegian purl, so that this knit stitch on the edge stays like very closed, doesn't get too loopy, because this is where I'm going then to pick up stitches, and I really want this part to be quite neat. So here I'm going to the front, I go into the stitch and wrap in the other way around, and then in the next stitch and then just continue like this, you know, just knitting everything. It's a very simple sweater, like cardigan. There's no decreases or increases, you just go straight until you reach the desired length. And those two purl stitches, we have two because it's convenient, but we could also have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But there's no point for it because we're going to cut them. And usually we don't count those two extra purl stitches in the stitch count. So if I'm saying the body is 130 stitches, it is 132 stitches actually. It's 130 stitches plus the stick stitches, which happen to be 2 stitches. So I don't, and we're going to cut them, so it's like they don't exist. So just think of them as inexistent stitches.
As for the feet, I was thinking of this ribbing, like, which is the hip bones. So your hip bones is the biggest bone you have on the hip and should reach the waist. So you can absolutely try it on. So this really is my hip bones and my waist is here. So this is really, the distance is working for me. But if you want to have the sweater longer, like I said, you can really have it around the hips because the ribbing will flare a bit much, and then just knit a little bit more. Yeah, well, I guess that will be it for this week. Next week we will meet again and knit the sleeve, and it's going to be time now to announce the winner of this week giveaway. So it is Jennifer Tran, I hope I pronounce it correctly, and your win is a 20% discount reduction on my website on any product of your choice. So if you could just contact me via my email address, and let me have you know, your email, and so first I will send you the discount code. And I will be done with my body next week, and we will knit the sleeve and go through magic loop, chartreuse and colorwork. So have a nice week, and I'll see you well, next week. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe and to yeah, I mean, all I said at the beginning, I'm not a very good YouTuber.